Oh my goodness, the Padres. Oh, the Padres. This is the On Fire podcast. I am Derek Togers, and Darnay Tripp is out on another assignment today. Ben Fletcher from the Fletch Zone, our good friends next door at 760. What's going on, Fletch? Thanks for hopping in today, pinch hitting for us.
How we doing, so? It's been about, 2 hours since I talked to you last.
Yeah, seriously, they had me on the show this afternoon over on you guys' side. So we're going to get much more in depth than with all of that stuff. You know what we have here, though, that you guys don't have over there?
What's that?
We have walk-up music. Check it out. If that's not the sign of a high-quality podcast, I, my friend, do not know what is. By the way, this is an On Fire podcast sponsored by OG's. I know Darnay's always got the long read. Listen, if you like food and you like sports, go to OG's. If you like beer and you like sports, go to OG's. If you like beer, sports, and food, just go over to OG's. They'll get you all covered. All right, Fletch, let's get right down to brass tacks, because I hate long, winding, rambling intros to podcasts. Are the Padres going to do anything of note here, or is what we see what we have? Because I don't see them signing a big free agent. I'm not sure if they're going to make a big splashy trade to bring in somebody. What is going on or not going on?
Yeah, it's unfortunate. I think right now, Derek, what we have is a situation where the words "that's too expensive" are coming into play way too often. You said it on my show today. It's not something we dealt with a few years ago, but now, unfortunately, the finances are just coming into this way too much. And you know what? If the Padres are cutting payroll, if that's really the game plan and they're saying goodbye to some of the biggest culture pieces on the team, then I think this is what you got. And what you got right now, to me, is a third at best placed team in the NL West, and that shouldn't be good enough for Padre fans.
Behind the Dodgers, obviously, did the Diamondbacks pass him with that pitching staff, adding Corbin Burns? Did God forbid the Giants jump above him with Bo Mel and Willie Adames?
It's tough to see the Padres right now, as it stands, being ahead of the Diamondbacks by the end of the year, because, like you said, they have one of the best rotations in all of baseball. I'd say second to the Dodgers. And then with the San Francisco Giants, at least they did something this offseason. They brought in Adames. The Padres, all they've done is say goodbye to people, and the Elias Diaz is here. So I don't really know what you can compare what's happened in the NL West with what the Padres have done. The Padres have downgraded the most, even more than the Rockies, I would say.
And which is weird because they haven't done anything. They've just kind of stayed put. I mean, you had Jurickson Profar leave, which stunk, right? Yeah, Ha-Seong Kim, we knew was not going to be back again. That I don't think is as nearly as big a loss, especially if he's getting $14.5 million a year. He's coming off a shoulder injury, a fairly substantial one. I doubt he's worth that. Profar, we've been saying on this podcast for months, he's worth $13 to $15 million a year. He got $14 million a year from Atlanta. That should have been able to happen with this team. This ownership thing, I think, is having a much bigger impact on stuff than anybody ever realized. So is it just trades now? Is there a trade partner out there that would make Padres fans excited? Like Dylan Cease is the guy we keep talking about, and I'll give you my take on this in a minute. But if he's the guy who heads out of town, what does the return have to be to make Padres fans not think, oh, crap, here comes the fire sale again?
It's got to be a left fielder who can hit 270. It's got to be a left fielder who can hit for power. And apparently the Cubs have somebody. I heard John Morosi talking about it. Somebody that they would include that they would include in the deal. That would make Padre fans feel a little bit better. But then you start looking at the rotation for the Padres, and right now you're at least kind of competitive with Yu Darvish, Dylan Cease, Michael King. Well, two of those guys might not be on the team come opening day, but you're at least competitive with those three guys. You could fill in a Randy Vasquez, hell, Matt Waldron's out there, see if he can recapture some of the magic. But if Dylan Cease is gone, if you're taking 200-plus innings out of this rotation, I don't see how competitive it can possibly be, unless A.J. Preller hits the absolute jackpot again with a Seth Lugo, Michael Wacha combination, or like the Michael King, Matt Waldron combination, which carried you through a lot of the regular season last year. But Preller's going to have to work some magic. Now, I almost don't even blame A.J. Preller with what's going on right now, because he's proven the last couple of years that he can make do while decreasing the payroll a bit, especially last year, one of the best regular seasons in Padres history. But the problem is the ownership dispute legitimately handcuffing him and paralyzing him to the point where he can't do anything right now. And that's what it seems like. I tell you what, Jurickson Profar, his comments immediately after signing with the Braves, some of the most damning comments that I've seen about the Padres since, I don't know, heads will roll from Ron Fowler. But the fact that he said, look, obviously ownership's got something going on, and that's why I'm a Brave. Like, you can't tell me Jurickson Profar didn't want to be here. You can't tell me that Jurickson Profar wasn't one of the most important culture pieces that this team had a year ago. The only time he looked like he was pissed off was when he was getting hit, and he got hit a lot. But guess what? He would get hit, the Padres would go win that game. But Jurickson Profar, being such close friends with Tatis, being such a big part of the leadership of this team, and oh, by the way, top 5 in a bunch of offensive categories a year ago, that one stings so much, man. And to think it's $14 million a year, like, that wouldn't even be a blink of an eye 3 years ago. And now it's just letting him walk out the door for that. That sucks.
He's the catalyst. That's the word I think we're looking for. He's the straw that stirs the drink. He's the Steve Nash of this team, who it goes as that guy goes. You know, it's you take an old MVP point guard to bring him into this conversation. I hated seeing him leave. I wasn't as taken aback by the comments as a lot of people were, because I think what he was saying was not so much ownership's in complete disarray over there, so much as like, well, they're in a spot where they can't spend money. So I kind of understand it, which we all knew anyway. So I don't think it was quite as damning as a lot of people are taking it, although I totally see why people would think that. I think that's a little more emotion coming into the fray here. But this Owen
maybe, but isn't it? It's just the fact that the ownership problems are having something to do with the on-field product. And if that's the case, then what are we doing here?
Well,
it's
that's
the same as the
Bomel
and AJ Preller.
Have an impact on on-field product, because that's where the money comes from. So if you have a team going through a sale, if you have a team going through an owner, maybe God forbid having a health issue, like it impacts the bottom line. It can't not impact the bottom line.
It makes sense. It stinks that that's where we're at, and it's a little bit of the Bomel, AJ Preller, the dysfunction at the top with the two of them, and then all of a sudden your team that's a super team that Buster Olney was saying is the favorite to win the World Series before the year, the super team is having issues because of Bob Melvin and AJ Preller not getting along. Like, why is that impacting what really matters, which is the 9 guys on the field?
Chemistry, man. Chemistry is real. Chemistry, there's no stat for it. There's no way to know how to build it. All you know is if it's there or if it's not there. It wasn't there in 2023. You're damn right it was there in 2024. And I think we talked about this on your show. By the way, Fletch Zone, noon to 2 on AM 760. Go to San Diego Sports 760. Go check that one out on your iHeartRadio app, or just driving around town, because you keep your AM radios in your cars, which people should be doing. But it's almost like we saw the arrow pointing up, right? And we're going, man, 2024 was a great year. Build off that. Let's go. The Dodgers could be had. Build on it. We were this close to getting them and knocking them out, and then they were being complete disarray because nothing would work. And so we're like, build on that, double down, go, improve, increase it. And it's like they just went not only stagnated, but started to regress. And so that's why we're going, like, why are you not taking all this amazing momentum that was built from that incredible season and trying to make it even better? It's like, was that good enough for you? I think that's where a lot of fans are sitting right now, was competing once every other year good enough for you? Because it's not good enough for us. And that's where a lot of this consternation is coming from.
Consternation is the right word. And it's the fact that the Dodgers have gotten better this offseason. So it's like you got that close to them, and it felt like last year was the year. It really did. And for that, you can blame the guys on the field, right? They went 24 innings straight. It didn't score a run in the biggest moment of their season, hell, in the biggest moment of Padres franchise history, because look at the rest of the field in the playoffs this season. Like, a World Series could have been had this past year. But now moving forward, you look, the Dodgers reload. They're going to get Shohei Ohtani pitching. They add Blake Snell. Tyler Glass now is going to be healthy again. And then, of course, Roki Sasaki, who they get. And, yeah, he might have to have Tommy John. But the Dodgers end up with him, right? And it's just another gut punch to the Padres. So now, if, like, the gap was this big during this past postseason, now it feels like it's the distance between countries. Like, it's gotten so much bigger, it feels like. And that leads to a little hopelessness, which when hope springs eternal every spring, I'm not feeling it right now. I'm really not. I don't know what AJ Preller is going to do to spark that hope. I don't know what's going to be said at FanFest to spark that hope. But we're talking weeks now. This is no longer months in the future. All of a sudden, the time frame to do something has shrunk so much. And yes, AJ has done stuff in the past in little time where nobody thought that there was another move to be had, and he made it happen. But doesn't it feel different this time around? Doesn't it feel a little less hopeful this time around for AJ to grab that diamond in the rough somewhere? It does to me, and maybe I'm wrong.
No, it does. It almost feels like what kind of the rest of Major League Baseball must be feeling right now, because the Dodgers didn't just like upgrade. They went from a machine gun to a tank. Like they took these massive, they added not just, a guy like Blake Snell and Roki Sasaki, they added Tanner Scott and Kirby Yates. Like this, Kirby Yates is a luxury item for them. He'd be the closer on darn near any other team in Major League Baseball. It's like, maybe you'll be our sixth inning guy. They have such an embarrassment of riches that we're just going, okay, it's like Thanos has all the Infinity Stones, right? So now how do we stop this? Now we have to figure out time travel. We need to invert a Mobius strip. Where the hell is Tony Stark when you need him? Like it's like hope is lost at this point all across Major League Baseball, unless they make some sort of massive misstep on their own. Like the Dodgers are the only team that can beat the Dodgers, right? I even saw somebody trying to say, what if you broke them in half and did 2 starting nines? Would they be the 2 best teams in baseball? And I can honestly, you know what? Maybe I could see that potentially happening, because they have such depth in that organization. So it's not so much that we're like AJ is looking at this going, well, we got to find ways to improve and try and catch them, because nobody can catch them. So it's almost just like, what's the point of trying kind of vibe that's set in right now. And I'm pretty sure that's not the case over at Petco Park or any of the other 28 ballparks around Major League Baseball. But could you blame him if it was?
No, not at all. And the true deep, dirty secret of all of this is the Dodgers really, really struggled with health last year. Are we sure they're going to get that same benefit for the rest of baseball again this year? I doubt it. I highly doubt it. So if the Dodgers say they're 10% more healthy than they were a year ago, they go into the postseason this year with an actual full starting 5 rotation, it's pretty hopeless for the rest of baseball. And this is not a Padres problem. This is an everyone problem. And I don't agree with people who are saying, well, baseball is rigged towards the Dodgers right now. No, the Dodgers are just doing it better than the rest of baseball. They're actually spending the money. And sure, the deferrals are there for them, but they could be there for everyone else. It's not like baseball has tilted towards the Dodgers. The Dodgers are just taking advantage of baseball.
It's the same idiots who say that the NFL is rigged for the Kansas City Chiefs.
Hang on. That might be true.
That's a sort of subjective view. I know, but here's why. Give me the reason why. Why would they? Remember, they had Super Bowls long before Taylor Swift got there. Why on earth would the NFL stack everything in the 34th largest media markets in the middle of the country? It's a flyover state. There's if the NFL is going to rig it for anything, they'll do what the NBA and Davis Stern did and rig it for New York to get the Knicks Patrick Ewing. That's one, or LA, get the Rams, let them win all of this stuff. There's no reason at all for them to say, hey, Kansas City, 34th biggest media market, really small. Your airport looks like a giant concrete jungle with 2 runways. There's no reason for them ever to say, this is the team, this is the city that we're going to rig everything towards. It makes no sense.
It's not rigged towards the Chiefs. Patrick Mahomes is just the best quarterback in the world. It's not.
And Andy Reid's the best coach of all time.
Thank you. And they've had this insane, call it luck if you want. I think it's an excellent general manager, an excellent owner, an excellent coach, an excellent quarterback, and then position pieces around them that perform. Like, who drafts Isaiah Pacheco and has him be such an impact on their team? It doesn't happen anywhere else. Right. So the Chiefs are just better than other people, and people have to get over that, myself included. But it's not rigged in football. It's not rigged in baseball. There is no script. It is just good owners willing to put up good money and finding good general managers to hire the best players and coaches.
I was talking about my buddy John, who works at Costco, the other day. My wife and I were out there shopping. He said, are you mad at the Dodgers? I said, no, I'm not mad at the Dodgers. He's like, they're doing everything inside the rules. I said, I know. And that's what's so frustrating, is they're the only ownership group right now that is willing to take these rules that Major League Baseball has set in place and say, you know what? Screw the luxury tax. Screw all of this. They're up after the Kirby Yates signing. They're up right around $379 million. Looking at the tax, they're going to have darn near a $130 million tax bill next year. But they have the ability to pay that and the desire to do it. Magic Johnson is a billionaire, and he's the fourth richest owner in that ownership group. It's ridiculous how much money they have, and all they care about is championships. Plus, they make it all back being so big in Japan with all the Japanese superstars they have. They have the biggest stadium in Major League Baseball, and they get 50,000 plus there to Dodger Stadium every single night, even though it's a horrible, awful, terrible place. They make money on this, but instead of just taking that, and like a lot of these, the Rockies owners and the Pirates owners and the A's owners, and making that an investment for them, the Dodgers owners are turning around and throwing it right back into the product. And they're one of the very few owners in baseball to do so. No, I'm envious of them and what they're doing. Now, do I like it? Hell no, I don't like it. But am I mad at it? No, because they're doing what they need to do to win, and we should all be so lucky. And that's what Peter was trying to do. God rest his soul. And before, unfortunately, he was taken from us far too soon, and now we're kind of dealing with this, well, which direction do we go kind of thing. And it's extremely frustrating for Padres fans to have had a taste of what the Dodgers are doing and then have it ripped away from you while they continue to not just continue it, but improve and expand on it.
Now, in an alternate universe, Derek, had the Padres not gone 24 straight innings last year of scoreless baseball at the very end of the season, and the Dodgers move on, the Dodgers kind of roll through the rest of the postseason, I think it's fair to say the Dodgers-Padres series was the World Series. In an alternate universe where that doesn't happen and the Padres clutch up and they get a World Series last year, tear it down to the studs. I don't care. Save all the money you want. One World Series is enough. But the fact that what was promised to Padres fans when Peter was still alive was the decade of the Padres, you were assuming championship would come here. And that was what the investments were for, the Manny Machados, the Xander Bogaerts, even though that contract they knew would age terribly. It was about getting a veteran in the room. And Manny's contract's going to age bad too. Hell, Fernando's might age kind of bad. But the point was to get this team together, to beat the Dodgers, get the World Series, deal with everything else after the fact. Now, Padres don't do it. They go 24 straight scoreless innings. They don't get to the World Series. They don't get an opportunity to win it. And this is now unacceptable. Not adding to this team at all when you still have these guys who are in their prime or near their prime, and you can't add anything to it, and you didn't get to the place where you said you were going to go. Now it's the time to start pointing fingers. And now on top of everything, you got two sides of an ownership group battling with each other, infighting in the family, nasty, horrible things said about both sides. And unfortunately, Peter Seidler's name is attached to every single second of all of this. And the Seidler name is getting dragged, which is brutal because we all know how huge Peter was in this community. And nobody has a bad thing to say about him. But unfortunately, Seidler is everywhere right now, and it's all negative.
That's the part that sucks the most about this is people talk about both sides. Sheil and the brothers are both saying, well, we know what Peter would have wanted. Well, I can tell you what Peter would not want. And what he would not want is all of this stuff happening in the public eye, right? He would not want people squabbling in the family over what's happening with the team. This is the one thing he would not want. So what is it? We stop talking about what he would want and go with the one very baseline thing that we know he does not want, which is what's happening before our eyes. Keep it behind closed doors. Whatever you have to do, I'm talking to both sides here, just figure this out like adults in the room. That he was always the adult in the room. And apparently there is not another adult in the room anymore. Maybe Ron Fowler needs to come back and exert some more influence here and start rolling some heads. I would love to see Ron go back in there and start going, what are you people doing? Everybody, please stop the madness. But unfortunately, that doesn't look like it's going to happen anytime soon. So where do we go from here? I mean, we're talking about, let's start with this one, Dylan Cease trade. All right. Does that excite
I don't like it?
Does that
no.
Nobody likes it. That's going to be we'll talk about the three main guys talking about being traded right now: Dylan Cease, Michael King, Luis Arraez. Dylan Cease seems to be the most likely because A, he makes darn near $14 million, and B, you've seen the market for starting pitchers this year. Max Scherzer just got $15 million for 1 year from the Blue Jays. That guy's 97 years old, and he's still getting a $15 million deal. Yet Dylan Cease is sub $14 million, is worth a lot, even if it is a 1 year rental. So that's why he could bring a massive return. So it makes sense. You got to get an arm coming back, and you have to get a young impact player to team with the Jackson Merrill and a Fernando Tatis Jr. Again, moving forward, can the Padres get the value back from Dylan Cease if they have to send him out of town? And I think the answer to that is not in 2025, but possibly in 2026 through 30. And would that be good enough for you?
In my question, why are we worrying about 26 through 30? If you were right there.
Because you still got to deal with all those guys in the Dodgers who sign up for the next decade. You
No,
got
I
to
know.
long term a little bit here.
I know. And I got a text on my show the other day that was like, man, wouldn't it be nice if CJ Abrams, Mackenzie Gore, and they threw out a couple other names of guys that were involved in the Soto trade. Robert Hassel was in there. And then who was the bullpen
James
guy?
Wood.
James Wood, who threw gas. So they were going through all these names, and I was like, you almost can't even look at that because you had Juan Soto, and you got back Michael King, and you got to Dylan Cease eventually with some of the pieces you got for Soto. So you almost can't look at that and think about it. Now, if AJ can spin some magic and get some serious pieces for Dylan Cease right now, I guess it makes sense. But here's the deal. Dylan Cease is going to throw for over 200 innings this year. Like, that's what he does in his career. He's a horse, man. He works. You're not going to get that in return. If you get a left fielder, is that left fielder going to be able to produce at Jurickson Profar levels? I doubt it from a year ago. It's just such a crappy situation because you know if Dylan Cease leaves, you're not going to get a starting pitcher that's Dylan Cease-esque. You're not going to get a guy who you can rely on and know is going to give you 20-plus starts. So that's where it gets really tricky, man, is no matter what, 2025, the product without Dylan Cease, you know for a fact is going to be at the very least less consistent than Dylan Cease would have been. And right now he's here, and 14 mil is a discount for him. And your rotation is kind of solid with him. And you could almost deal with a subpar left fielder if you still have Dylan Cease here. But if you have to choose one between Michael King and Dylan Cease, I'd rather work on an extension for Michael King. But that's being forced into a corner that we just wouldn't have been forced into 2.5, 3 years ago.
Agree. I completely agreed on Michael King. I love the kid. I think he's got probably maybe a little longer, more consistent career. I mean, Dylan Cease is going to give you spikes that Michael King simply can't give you. The no-hitter, the incredible stuff, the bullet slider. Like his stuff is probably top 10 in baseball right now. But he's just got Boris clients. And we know there's one thing that we know, it's he's going to free agency. So do you roll the dice on him now? Look at it. This is where I keep on going back and forth. It's probably going to take me a little while to talk my way around this to fully explain it. But 2025 is going to be a grind against the Dodgers anyways. So do you now look ahead to, do you keep the best possible rotation we have for 2025 right now, hoping that a frontline rotation of Cease, Darvish, King in the playoffs can beat the Dodgers, which showed last year it's entirely possible that could very well happen? Or do you look longer term and say, okay, we know we've got him for 1 year. He's not going to re-sign here. So go out and get a guy like an Owen Casey, who, by the way, was a second-round pick of the Padres in 2020 and was sent to the Cubs in the Yu Darvish trade. And that guy's got stupid raw power from the left side. And you got him for 6 years to put next to Jurickson Profar, gives you another left-handed bat in your lineup, who you drafted, maybe a little redemption time anyway to bring him back into the system, and then get another one of their younger starting pitchers, a guy who doesn't exactly know, doesn't exactly have the longer term success in Major League Baseball that you've had, and then maybe another lower level prospect, whatever it might be. You're not getting half of their 7 top 100 prospects that the Cubs happen to have right now. That's not going to maybe you can get 2 of them. Do you look longer term? Because now you're getting rid of Dylan Cease, who's going to give you a 5-WAR season, versus if you get 2 guys back to fill 2 holes on your roster, you can then get combined them. You get a 7-WAR season. Is that somehow better if they then help you in the future because you can find another pitcher somewhere along the line? This is where I keep vacillating, going back and forth on what's better for this team both this year and in the years to come. And I honestly can talk myself into and out of both scenarios, and I'm frustrating the hell out of myself because I can't land on which one's better.
Well, put yourself into the shoes of the Seidler bros or AJ or Shield, or whoever actually ends up making decisions here. Right now, it seems like it's the Seidler bros. Put yourself into their position. If you're going to punt on this season, is that acceptable to you in terms of Padre fans? Because I promise you it's not acceptable to Padre fans. At the very least, even if you punt on the regular season and say, all right, we're just going to accept that the Dodgers are going to be the NL West champions, which maybe even if you had the best lineup in baseball, they might still get that. But if you can get into the postseason, you need to have a competitive top 3 pitchers. Who's going to be the guy that comes in for Dylan Cease that replaces him in those top 3? Now, we can also be honest, Dylan Cease wasn't great in the postseason for the Padres, right? Yeah. Michael King had a rough start. And Teoscar Hernandez was the guy who hit the bomb off of Michael King. I think I have that right. So
Teoscar Hernandez hit bombs off a lot of guys. I know, by the way, Michael King, first pitcher in playoff history for his first postseason start to be 7 shutout with at least 12 strikeouts. He ruled the Atlanta Braves. He owned the Atlanta Braves. That's the potential of this guy.
Right. And I agree with you. But who is going to be that third guy after Darvish, assuming Darvish health, which he really cannot do at this point in his career, and Michael King, assuming Michael King can have a repeat to last season where, if I have this right, he threw more innings than he ever had in his career. So
correct. 170 plus.
Trying to make all that work in your head, you're kind of taking at some sort of mitigated risk with King and Darvish as your 1-2. Who's going to be the third that you're getting, who's going to be worse than Dylan Cease, most likely, because you're going to have to get a couple pieces back for Cease. Who's going to be your third that makes this work in the postseason? Right now, it's not computing.
Well, you take a page from the Dodgers playbook last year. I got 2 words for you, Fletch. Bullpen game. The Dodgers proved last year
without Robert Suarez.
You can maybe without Robert Suarez, but with Jason Adam and Jeremiah Estrada and Ron Marinaccio. Don't call him Ralph Macchio. And
don't worry, Tanner Scott's here, right? Oh no, he's with the Dodgers.
And Adrian Morejón and insert name of you got Sean. By the way, keep an eye on Sean Reynolds this year. This kid's got closer makeup and closer stuff. I
get it, Derek, but we can't on January 30th be talking about a bullpen game in the postseason. No, you should be talking best case scenario. No, you got to talk best case scenario. You got to say, here's going to be our 3. That's
how
what's going to go.
How is that not the best case scenario?
The bullpen games are bullpen games you throw out there when you have to.
I know. I'm doing this for dramatic effect. No, I agree with you. The bullpen games are when you have no other option. You'd much rather have, hey, we can rely on Shohei Ohtani, Yoshinobu Yamamoto, Blake Snell, and Tyler Glasnow. That would be a better situation to be in.
How do you even pick your top 3? Like, honestly, are you just drawing? Yeah, it's out of a hat. You got a 3-game series. You're just gonna draw out of a hat who's gonna start those 3 games.
That's it with those dudes. Even if Sasaki's not in the mix, that's exactly what you do. I know, by the way, they'll probably bring back Kershaw just for kicks, just to be like, hey, why not?
And they got a guy named Blake Snell too, who can perform. He had one of the best World Series performances of all time before Kevin Cash took him out of the game inexplicably.
Against the Dodgers. Yeah, although we do know what is good though about that is we know for the first 2 months of the season, every time Snell starts, the Dodgers are going to lose.
Yeah,
so
because
that's at least encouraging.
He's got to figure out exactly where in his apartment in LA. I'm assuming he seems like I don't know where he's going to live in LA, but we got to assume he's got to figure out the perfect spot for his gaming and Twitch setup.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, has another team that I keep thinking about in the Dylan Cease and or Michael King type of thing, the Baltimore Orioles. They have a glut of young position players, outfielders, Heston Kjerstad, corner infield, a guy like Kobe Mayo, who can come in to solve your infield problem he can platoon at first base and DH with a guy like Luis Ariz. If you can send Cease to Baltimore, get him out of the National League, which would be nice, and bring back a couple of guys who look like, even a Colton Cowser, I've heard his name being on the trade block, who was a young player who was a rookie of the year caliber in the American League last year. Again, a guy who's already a friend with Jackson Merrill. What if you do something like that? So now we got maybe you got to find another arm somewhere, but you got a couple of position players who are going to be here and controllable for the next 5 years who look like they're really coming into their own. That I can maybe start going, you know what? It hurts, but I'm talking myself into saying, okay, you know what? We can plug a couple holes in the rotation this year, which AJ's done a brilliant job of doing in the past. You mentioned Seth Lugo, Michael Wacha. The Padres have always found guys to work with Ruben Niebla to somehow turn them into guys who are much better than we ever thought they were going to be. And then you're looking maybe to build more of the deep talent base. You're going to need to try and compete. And then maybe if you let's forget about the rotation for a minute. What if you just go all in on the offense? What if you got 9 sluggers, you got 9 studs up and down the offense? It doesn't matter who's out there. You got to win a 9-8 game on any given night, you can win a 9-8 game. What if you take that approach? Let's now fill every hole we possibly have in the lineup where nobody except maybe catcher, is going to be the outs, the easy outs in this lineup. What do we go all in on the other direction? Would that help Padres fans where it's going to be exciting? We're going to win a lot of 7-6 games, but we're winning those games.
I don't actually mind that. I really don't, because you look at what's happened in the NL West, and with two of the better rotations in baseball in the NL West currently, I could see doing the counter programming thing, right? Like in radio, if this other station that you compete against has some sort of live programming, that you're not going to talk about that. In baseball, maybe if everyone else in your or in your division is loading up for war on the pitching side of things, maybe you load up on the offensive side of things. The only thing I would dispute, unfortunately, the Padres don't have a ton of consistency from these stars. Like, we see stretches of Manny Machado when he's the best hitter in all of baseball. We also see a couple months where he really, really struggles. Xander Bogaerts hasn't quite been Xander Bogaerts since he's been in San Diego. Maybe this year turns that around. Maybe. That'd be bright-siding things. Jackson Merrill's really the only guy last year, and even he had a stretch later in the season where he really struggled, and that may have lost him the Rookie of the Year, even though I would contend he still should have been the Rookie of the Year. So you look up and
no question. He fouled that ball off his back leg and went through a stretch. It was like I think it was like 5 games he didn't get a hit, and he was back to being Jackson Merrill.
Right. But when you look at pitching, I think it's just so much easier to have a consistent rotation than it is to have a consistent power slugging lineup, like you're saying. Where the Padres, almost on offense, I don't worry about them nearly as much right now because you have the guys. You have Fernando. You have Manny. Those are two of the best hitters in baseball right there. You have Jackson Merrill, who's one of the fastest rising stars on the offensive side. And, oh, by the way, last year, his first attempt, he was pretty damn good in center field. Mm-hmm. Yeah, you need a left fielder, but you can almost find a plug for that, bury him in the 8th spot in the lineup.
Oscar Gonzalez, SpongeBob.
Hopefully, Luis Campusano has a great year hitting as much as he does catching this year, and we see some real growth from him on the defensive side. So I'm almost not as worried about the defense or the offense. Defensively, though, Luis Arraez is a little bit of liability at first base. So do you bring someone in to counteract that and maybe make Luis Arraez a mostly designated hitter this year? And then left field, last year you struck such gold by taking a flyer on Jurickson Profar. That was not unexpected offense that comes in and carries you. I mean, Jackson Merrill and Jurickson Profar, each of them, I would say, responsible for 15 wins, or combined, responsible for probably 20 wins combined between the two of them a year ago. So how are you going to strike gold again in left field, which is such a offensive position for the Padres? It's tricky. I don't know that loading up for war on just the offensive side is going to be nearly enough for you to go up against these rotations.
Brandon Lockridge, man.
Okay.
It's all about Brandon Lockridge. Yeah, I know. That was, I almost said that with a straight face. Speaking of Luis Arraez, if we keep hearing his name come up in trade scenarios here, he's making $14 million in his last year of arbitration. He is one of the most polarizing players in baseball when it comes to stat heads. And I don't know why. I mean, you look at the numbers, look at the underlying. He doesn't hit the ball hard. He gets on base. He hits a lot of singles. He annoys the hell out of pitching staffs, and he's a guy who was great in the clubhouse. I love Luis Arraez. I will hear no Luis Arraez slander anytime, anywhere, because he's the guy who, yes, you look at his baseball savant page, you're like, well, how is this guy a major league hitter? And then you look at what actually happens on the field. You go, okay, the eye test does not match the math. But I think in this one, you got to go with the eye test. So when he got here in early May, the offense changed. It got better. It got longer. They became a better hitting and offensive club. Can you see them trading him? Because you can't replace him. There's nobody else like him. He finally solved the leadoff hitter spot that has been a problem since really they took Fernando Tatis Jr. out of the leadoff spot. Can you replace a guy like that for this offense? Because I don't see how you can.
I was going to bring it up to you as would this surprise you? But what if they move on 2 of the 3 of these guys? What if they move on Cease and Arraez? Like, would you put it past this feud that's going on at the top? I personally wouldn't. If they move on off of both of them to try to save $28 million a year, and then, try to add a bunch of young guys who are making league minimum and try to make it work that way. I don't think that's what's going to happen. I think it's one or the other. Personally, love Luis Arraez. There's a lot of stat nerds that don't love Juan Soto too because he walks too much, but Luis Arraez doesn't walk enough. So when I look at Luis Arraez, I think he's the perfect addition to this team. Personally, I would put Fernando back in the leadoff spot and put Luis Arraez right behind him so you could try to get Nando's speed on because a bloop single can score Fernando from first. But
yeah, and Arise is not fast. That's when he's not fast. He's not a great base runner.
He's a bad first baseman outside of the postseason where he actually made some really nice plays. But Luis Ariza's bat is the first and only person I think has ever been put into the Tony Gwynn conversation. Like legitimately the first and only person who's been put into that conversation because he doesn't strike out. He always gets the ball in play. He doesn't have a crazy high double play rate, even though he is always putting the ball in play. And he's able to, those bloop singles I could see all day. Like that's my favorite type of baseball, especially when you got guys who have absolute Mark McGwire bats right behind him with Fernando Tatis Jr. I can't see them moving on, but hell, nothing would surprise me at this point, Derek.
Now that's what sucks about this is at this point, would anything surprise you if they dealt in 4 straight days, Cease, Arise, King, and Suarez? Like would that surprise anyone at this point? It would that would be the fire sale. But also would be looking at it like going, well, I guess we should have seen it coming.
All those guys and package one of those deals with Jake Cronenworth. That I honestly do see that happening. I think Jake Cronenworth's contract was a bit of a mistake when they signed it. I think they could have gone shorter term, less money. Instead, they paid a lot. And you know what? That was a Peter Seidler thing, and I applauded it when it happened because I think Jake is great for this clubhouse. You would know that better than me. But can't you see a Dylan Cease, Jake Cronenworth combo going somewhere to try to get Jake's money off the book? Because unfortunately, offensively, the math just doesn't add up.
Yeah, unfortunately, and again, I love Jake too, and he really is great in that clubhouse, and guys really do respect the heck out of him. He's talking to guys like Manny all the time. The problem with attaching him to a guy like Cease is, well, now the other team has to either really like him and really want to get him and think the contract is okay, which at second base, that's not a bad contract. It's not a great contract, but it's not a bad contract. At first base, it's a terrible contract. It doesn't give you the kind of production you need from a first baseman. So if you attach him to Cease, either the team has to really like him or the prospect capital you get back is going to be less because that team's taking this other contract off your hands. So it kind of defeats the purpose of getting rid of Cease in the first place. That's where I would hesitate on attaching someone like that.
Now, can I tell you my biggest concern, Derek, right now with the Padres? It's the fact that Manny Machado and Shiel Seidler are so close. Manny Machado, I view as the emotional barometer of the Padres. And when Manny's happy, the Padres are winning. When Manny's pissed, the Padres kind of suck. We saw it happen big time when Bob Melvin and AJ were going through their stuff. Manny was ticked off. Padres kind of went in the tank. And that was with the Juan Soto on their team. That was with a loaded up roster. If this dispute at the top of the Padres right now, is it all going to tick Manny Machado off? I fear that we might be in for a long season either way, regardless of whether Dylan Cease moves on, or Luis Ariz moves on. Like if Manny Machado comes into this season, and maybe rightfully so, thinking that this team should belong to Shiel and not the Seidler brothers, and he's pissed off about that, I don't know what there is to save the Padres, even if they had a great roster.
You know what he can do though is go out on the field and show how valuable he is to this team. And at that point, do it for Peter. You know, that's got to be the overriding thing here. It's almost got to be like Major League, the movie where they go out and win in spite of what's going on in ownership and not because of what's going on in ownership. Like they all got to go to get together and get that, foxhole bunker mentality and go, guys, this sucks. I like the dudes we have in here. We got a great group of players. Let's roll. Let's go do this and say, forget everybody else and figure out a way to go out and win a bunch of baseball games. And remember, Manny Machado also is not just playing for the Padres. This dude's chasing history. I will say he's chasing baseball immortality because he is, I'm not a big fan of the word on pace for or on a pace, but he's got a very good chance to get the 500 home runs and 3,000 hits. He's within striking distance if his career keeps progressing like it is of both of those milestones. Do you know how many players have both 500 homers and 3,000 hits?
I'm going to guess it is just into double digits.
7.
Just below double
players
digits.
All time. You're talking about Hank Aaron, Willie Mays, okay, Eddie Murray. We're talking about the greatest ball player, Miguel Cabrera, Albert Pujols, the greatest hitters who have ever lived. He's got a chance to do that. So Manny, I think, is motivated by, at this point, legacy and spot in history more than he's going to get upset with what's going on with an ownership type of situation. So I'm not worried about Manny coming out and
He
being
takes
toxic
things personal, man.
He's going for his numbers.
Yeah, but he takes things personal. We've seen it in the past, and every time Manny talks about Peter, Shields' name wasn't far behind it, and we know the respect he had for them. And we know how Manny Machado and his wife would go to dinner at Peter and his wife's house and vice versa. Like, we know that relationship and how solid it was. So if Manny is seeing this, and there are some nasty things that are being said about Shield, and Shield has said some nasty things about the Seidler brothers, if this is at all impacting Manny, if Manny's not happy heading into the season, man, it's dangerous to me. You know, I saw a video today of Fernando Tatis Jr. and Luis Arraez and Jake Cronenworth walking on the field at Petco Park, and I was like, that's great, man. First time I've seen some smiles with anything related to Padres outside of seeing some guys at an Aztecs game all offseason. I'm curious to see what Manny is thinking right now.
And he will be able to talk about that come spring training and show us exactly how he feels about that. And that is, he is very much a very large personality in that clubhouse. And when things get sour, he can get sour. But I would even argue that Toddy has a bigger personality, and his mood swings, and I've said this on this podcast, his mood swings, I think, have an even bigger impact on the Padres, because when things are going great, everything's awesome. You know, he's flipping the bat. And you saw this last year. I think as he gets older, he's maturing more. Being away from baseball as much as he was with the injuries and the suspension has made him mature more. He didn't have those super duper highs and super duper lows. He was much more even keel, and the Padres benefited from that. But I'll even go a step further to say, looking at the way that even Manny and Toddy interact with Jackson Merrill, and Jackson Merrill is the ultimate even keel guy. I mean, I've talked to him after he set rookie records. That's baseball. You know, it's just great. You know, it was eventually I'm going to have a bad time. He's in the middle of an 0 for 19. It's baseball. You know, it's going to turn around. It doesn't matter. He is so, every day is the same thing. I think his personality of always being right there and thinking, dude, the game is going to turn in our favor. It has to. This is going to. That relentless positivity is rubbing off on the other guys. So I think Jackson Merrill is truly the emotional barometer for that clubhouse. And if he is able to take his interpretation and approach to the game and apply it to all the other guys in there, that's going to be a saving grace for this club.
By the way, thank God it's only year 2 for Jackson. Could you imagine if we were having the conversation as he's about to go into arbitration, if that was this perfect storm of this offseason, if they were having to decide on whether or not to pay Jackson Merrill? Because if it was happening right now, they would say no, which is disgusting. But Jackson Merrill, I agree with you on everything you said. There's still a fact that it's only year 2 for him in the pros. And Manny, what year is this for him? Are we up to 12, 13 at this point?
Yep, we're getting there.
So it's tough when you, and I agree with you, like he doesn't do the lead by necessarily talking about it. He just leads by, well, I'm Jackson Merrill. This is how I feel about everything. So here we go. I'd also say it's not like Jackson has really had a bad time at the major league level yet. What happens if he does? What happens if he goes into a slump, extended one, as guys get to watch film on who he was this past year, as guys get more information on how to pitch around him a little bit? Sophomore slumps are as real in football, as real in basketball, as real in baseball. What happens if he goes into a slump? I think that he has the right mindset and the right mentality to keep what you're saying going, the positive attitude, to get out there and go, and yeah, it's going to turn in our favor eventually. But he really hasn't had more than like a week of bad baseball under his belt yet. And we know in Major League Baseball, guys can go on a month stretch. And the best ones ever, the Manny Machados, to your credit, they figure out a way to hit themselves out of it, swing themselves out of it, and mentally bounce back for it. We're going to see it from Jackson this year. And it's going to tell you a lot how he bounces back from something.
The key for Jackson Merrill is he can hit anything, right? What's going to happen is he's going to start seeing fewer fastballs and more sliders in the dirt. And if he is able to lay off of those and start taking his walks, and this is what happened with Mike Trout in year 2, is happened with Gunnar Henderson in year 2. You know, their walk totals went up even more than usual. If he's able to say, all right, you know what? I know that I can hurt you in the strike zone. So I'm not going to go outside the strike zone. You can walk me all you want, because guess what? I've got these 3 guys. I've got Xander Bogaerts right behind me. He'll start driving me in. I'm good with that. Is he going to take that approach so that teams know that they can walk him? because he's not going to expand his strike zone and get himself outs. So they have to attack him in the zone, and that's where he still remains Jackson Merrill. Or is he going to get frustrated and start saying, I've walked 8 times this week. I need to get a base hit, and start forcing it a little bit and start chasing a little bit. That's going to be the key to Jackson Merrill. And honestly, I'm feeling great about the fact that he will take the right approach. You don't want to walk me? Fine. You want to pitch to me? Don't pitch to me. Walk me. That's fine. This guy's going to get me. Jake will drive me in. I was going to cause more problems either by stealing 30 bases this year. I think he has that kind of mentality. So hope that's going to be the biggest test for him, as teams now are scared of him. So they're going to do everything they can to make him get himself outs. And if he can avoid that trap, the sky's the limit. He will be just fine. I'm pretty sure that's what's going to happen.
I hope so. I really do. He's one of the most fun Padres to watch right now. So I hope you're 100% right. I'm curious to see how he gets pitched this year, because obviously he hurt so many teams so late in games too, which was the most impressive part a year ago for the rookie. And what happens if that is the situation for him? What happens if he does get up at 2 outs in the bottom of the ninth? The situation we all dream about. Last year he had so much success in that situation. Baseball's a ton of mini mental games. If he doesn't have that success this year, where's he going to go? I don't want to be negative on Jackson Merrill. I think I'm not. I promise you.
Why are you dragging Jackson Merrill?
I'm not. I'm saying these are all questions that need to be answered before the season gets going. And for Jackson's case, it's going to be as the season is in progress. I just see more negatives than I do positives right now. And Jackson Merrill is not a negative. I don't want that out there.
Yeah, he's the guy who we look at and go like, okay, as long as Jackson is okay, the season can be okay. Like that's the dude who we need to be a positive for us. And if he's not, then oh my God, what do we have left?
By the way, love OG's. Great place.
Oh, yeah. Thank you for that. Yeah, OG's, by the way, sponsor of the On Friar podcast. FanFest, Saturday. Gonna have a lot of dudes out there. As of right now, AJ Preller is not scheduled to talk. Hopefully he is on his phone trying to make deals during that time. We'll get a chance to talk to Jackson Merrill and Manny Machado and Toddy, and even Joe Musgrove is going to show up to give us an update, and you, Darvish, the main players who you want to talk to at FanFest. What do you think the vibe at FanFest is going to be? Because I think it'll be everybody gets together, like some trepidation, like I don't know what's the season really doing, but then everyone starts getting together and getting around these guys. The positivity spreads. I think it'll be an overall pretty good positive vibe. What say you?
So this is what I told Sammy the other day, who's 22 years old, and I think perspective sometimes is a tricky thing for him, because he's thinking that FanFest is going to be a boo fest. I don't think that's the case.
Oh God, no. No one's booing Mike Schilt. Just stop that, Sammy.
I don't think that's the case. Here's what I honestly think is going to happen, because you and I, we live in this world, at least I do, where I see the most dedicated, the most diehard fans. I wonder if you were to split the season ticket holders and ask how much of this information, like, is it 100%? Is it 50% between the ownership battle, between guys leaving? Like, how much of this is really impacting their day-to-day life, like it does for me, like it does for you, because we talk about it so much? I think that it's going to be overwhelmingly positive at FanFest. I really do. I think that people have a fonder memory of going to Petco Park as much as they did last year, setting another record of people through the gates. I think that is what the immediate memory will be when people walk in, and I think it'll be a great time. I really do, because you know what? The record's 0-0 right now. The possibilities are endless for this season. I think people might have a false sense of security with the Padres that, oh, they'll just be back there next year. And who am I to be like, no, they're going to win 70 games this year?
Yeah, well, we know that's not going. If they win 70 games this year, just contract the franchise, because it's like it'd be like, what are we even here? Why are we doing this? What
But seriously, okay, 88.5, 89.5. I think that was the win total set by Vegas. Mm-hmm. Should we go place the under now?
Let's get to spring training. I would, if we go into the season as the roster stands right now, I would say that's close, but probably slightly under 87, 88. If they swing come with a couple of these trades we've been talking about, then we'll have to see what the return is, yada, yada, yada. But what I will have a very hard time seeing them going over that, even if for some reason they find another Jackson Merrill situation, and for some reason Ethan Salas arrives and becomes an all-star catcher and as a 18-year-old. I don't see that happening, but I do see that being enough to get them the last wild card spot. And if you can get that last wild card spot, you're in this. Like AJ Smith used to say with the Chargers, you just got to get in the tournament. And then once you get in the tournament, then you have a chance. So I do see this team, even if they go in as they are right now, having enough to get into the tournament. And then we got to see what happens. Then as the 6th seed, you go up against the weak NL Central champion, you knock them off. Well, guess what? Now you're in the division series, and then as we saw, any old thing can happen.
Yeah, D-backs were in the World Series a couple years ago, and that was a couple years too early for them. Now, I will say, FanFest 2 years ago, was that Soto, Manny, Tatis, Xander all on stage at the same time?
Yep.
This will not have that energy.
Oh God, no. I was there for that, and it was like the Beatles walked on stage in 1964. Okay, it was like the Ed Sullivan Show, and here comes Elvis, and oh, by the way, Bob Dylan's with him too. They were rock stars. They were rock stars on that stage. So it won't be that this year, because that was legitimately a team. If you looked at it on paper, they should have won the World Series.
Yeah.
We didn't realize at the time that they had no chemistry whatsoever, because guys like Juan Soto and Blake Snell are just mercenaries who don't give a damn about their teammates. So when you get a better mix of guys, we didn't have that kind of on paper. Look at all these superstars, these all-stars we have nowadays. You got a bunch of pretty good dudes. It won't be that, but it'll still be, once you see the kind of the band getting back together, it might not be the Beatles, but it could be the Rolling Stones, and I'd be okay with that.
Yeah, Tatis is going to get a big pop, because I love the guy, man. And everybody else does here in San Diego too. And when you talk about electric baseball stars, it's not long before you get to his name. It's like Ellie De La Cruz is up there. Unfortunately, Paul Skeens is up there because of his girlfriend, and he's pretty good at baseball too. And then like Tatis is right there on that list with those guys, because he is just that rock star level status. There is something that's going to be a little bit lacking. I wonder what the percentage of the crowd at FanFest is going to be thinking about everything surrounding the Padres right now, and not just happy to see the guys.
We will see. Fletch, dude, you are awesome. Thanks for jumping in on this with us on short notice as well. By the way, where can people find you on a daily basis?
At Fletch Sports on X and Instagram, 760 every day from 12 to 2, and then 101.5 KGB every morning from 6 to 10. 6 hours of radio a day now, folks. It's getting good.
Now, by the way, Howard, are you just like the cat herder with those guys with Rich and TD? Like, is that how do you handle that?
Year one of working together, I tried to do that when we were doing sports in the morning. I tried to be the cat herder. And year 3 now, we'll see what happens. We're on a classic rock show now. We don't need to stick to talking about whatever the biggest sports story is. We just got to have the finger on the dump button ready for Rich Orberger to drop an F-bomb. Which, are you proud of me, Derek? Not one F-bomb this whole time.
I was impressed. I was we thought, I'm like, hey man, we're going to give Fletch a chance to go off the grid. He can't say this kind of stuff on the radio because the FCC will have a problem. Technically, you can't do this. However, this is still an NBC7 podcast, so we still need to do answer to some higher ups, so we can't be dropping F-bombs or all over the place. So I appreciate your restraint. It is impressive.
By the way, NBC7, you guys are welcome in studio anytime. If you want some good B-roll, just keep a camera on Rich the whole time in the mornings, and you'll get some good B-roll.
I love how you know what B-roll is. That's just one of those. Bernie Wilson, recently retired AP writer. God bless Bernie. He's been on this podcast many times. Every time I see him at Petco Park, he'd walk by. Hey, man, you got a good B-roll today? How's the B-roll coming? I'm like, Bernie, we got the best B-roll you'll ever see, man.
All right, best Bernie story ever, and I was a sidecar to this. I had nothing to do with it directly, but I was in the press box at Petco Park with Mike Costa and Bernie Wilson. The three of us were sitting together, and Randy Jones walks into the press box and turns to the crowd, or turns to the little area where we were sitting next to Bernie. He sits in that corner. It says, "Hey, a-hole." He said the real thing. And the only two people in the press box that turned around and looked were Mike Costa and Bernie Wilson. And when Randy Jones looked at him, he was like, yeah, I guess it works for both of you.
Now, did RJ say specifically who he was trying to target?
I think it was probably Costa, but the fact that Bernie turned around and looked also is just as funny.
Hey, you know what though? If the shoe fits, wear it. I would look as well.
Yeah.
Awesome. Fletch, man, appreciate it. Thanks for listening to the On Friar podcast. Thanks to OGs. We got a couple more of these before spring training, and I'll be out there. It's going to be interesting, man. It's going to be interesting.
See you guys.